everybody, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint on book pages using acrylic paint. So this video is going to be a tutorial, an acrylic painting tutorial on this autumn leaf, which I've sketched on here, and it's going to be on a old book page. So I'm going to show you how to be doing that today. So the very first thing that I did to prepare this, there's a couple of materials that you are going to need. First, I kept the pages inside this book. This is an old, dusty, dirty book I had in the attic. This is Pride and Prejudice, one of the Barnes & Noble classics, in case it matters to anybody. But please don't go out and buy a book specifically to do this. Make it an old one, or maybe something you found at a garage sale or thrift store or discounted. I'm sure we all have old, dusty, dirty books. And I think the older ones do better because they're a little bit discolored and crispy, and I think they look prettier. So because the pages are very thin, I wanted to double up the page for a little bit more support and a slightly stronger substrate to work on. So what I did was, while the pages were still in the book, I brushed on some of the Liquitex matte gel medium. This is an archival collage adhesive, so it works really well for fine art projects. If you don't have that, you don't have to have it. You could always use some Elmer's glue or a glue stick or something like that if it's for your own painting pleasure and enjoyment. But if you wanted it to be long lasting and it was something that you were going to sell, I'd recommend the Liquitex matte gel because it is an archival safe adhesive. So I just brushed that on inside the book, stuck the pages together, closed it up, and then I put something real heavy on it so that it could dry that way. And then that way I'd have the pages doubled up. At that point, I was then free to cut the pages from the book. So what I have here is two pages doubled up on one another. And then I applied a coat of primer. Now this is a must-have. You absolutely have to have this. This is the Liquitex Clear Gesso, and as you can see, it is absolutely crystal clear. I applied a thin layer. I brushed it in all different directions so it would be very smooth. I allowed it to dry completely, and here's where we are now. So I love that it's completely clear. I can still read the text. And I'm thinking of doing more tutorials using these book pages. I think I might even do a pastel painting tutorial on book pages, so let me know if you guys would be interested in that. What I did was I just sketched on a very simple maple leaf using a graphite pencil, and I put a little heart in the center of the leaf so it would look like there's a hole in the center of the leaf in the shape of a heart. I feel like that works for a couple of reasons. Number one, because obviously I love fall, and number two, because you'd be able to see some of the text through there, and I think that would look really pretty. And I also made a little hole over here so you'd see some of the lettering there. So if you're still here after that very long-winded explanation and going over the materials, the first thing that I'm going to do now after I've sketched on is I'm actually going to take some golden fluid titanium white. You can use heavy body white if that's what you have, or a white craft paint, whatever you have is fine. But basically I just want to go in and I want to make a solid white base coat over the leaf. Now ordinarily I would not use a round brush too much in acrylic paint, but I know this leaf has a lot of really sharp points and I want to make sure that I keep them. So I only want the text to be showing through where I choose to have that. So this way you can see this is very white, very opaque, and it's blocking out all that distracting text from behind. Alright, so now that I've applied a layer of white over the entire leaf, as you can see, and I've let that dry, except this one little part over here that I wanted to have as a folded over bit. I can do that later. I've already set out my colors of acrylic paint, so I'm going to be using yellow mid azo, transparent yellow oxide, or transparent yellow ochre, depending on the brand, burnt sienna, quinacridone red or quinacridone rose, again depending on the brand, and ultramarine blue. So those are the colors that I'm going to be using. I just have a small number 4 filbert here, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So let's see, the very first thing that I want to do is I want to mix up, I think I'm going to take some of that transparent yellow iron oxide with a little bit of burnt sienna And a little bit of the Permanent Rose. Oh, that's a really fiery, pretty color. I'm going to take some of that and put some of that in to this leaf. Just like that. Isn't that pretty? And by having that layer of white underneath, it's not only going to obviously make it much easier to have like a white canvas and not be worrying about that text underneath showing through, but also the colors are going to be so much more vibrant. I'm going to take some of that yellow mid-azo with a little bit of the transparent yellow in it. I'm going to start blending that into the other color. Being very careful to go around that heart, like super careful. And I'm blending it, the colors, I'm blending them okay, but I'm not worrying too much about perfect blending right now because honestly, it's the first layer, and you know, the first layer is always going to be a little transparent and can be a bit rough looking, and that's okay. I want more of that pure yellow in there. So I'm going to get that in. This first layer, like with any other acrylic painting, is just about blocking in the color. And if I didn't mention it just a moment ago, the only other color that I'm going to be using is white, which is not a color, but I am going to be using some white as well. Now, you want to be really careful not to get any on the actual book page where you don't want it. But if you do, while it's still wet, just go in there with a slightly damp brush and wipe it out. And that's the brilliance, also another advantage of priming the page with the clear gesso, is that you now do have that ability. I'm using regular acrylics for this, by the way. I'm using Golden and Matisse as my brands. You don't have to have the exact same brands of acrylic. If you're using a student grade acrylic paint, that's absolutely fine. But you'll definitely want to make sure you have a nice solid white base coat down first. And you may have to do a few more coats is all. Because the student grade paints tend to have a little less coverage. Well, they tend to have a lot less coverage, actually. I'm going to take my little round brush, go around my little heart. I'm not trying to mess that up. That's the only area we got to be kind of super careful, like it matters. And if you want to use a smaller brush to make sure you have that precision, go right ahead. I always feel like once I get a little bit of color down onto the page, suddenly that's when my camera decides, oh, the footage was too dark a minute ago? Well, guess what? It's too light now. That's just my camera for you. I don't know why that is, but I can adjust the exposure in just a moment if it's a little too bright. The more color that's in the shot, the brighter the image becomes. Yeah, that's overexposed. Okay. I just wanted to correct that really quickly because I could tell that image was extremely overexposed. A little bit of that, oops, I got paint on my hand. A little bit of that kind of Permanent Rose mixture. Now the thing is too, these colors, as I'm working on this first layer, you know, if I don't have every color exactly where I want it on that first layer, no sweat. We're not worrying about that. We're definitely not worrying about that because there's plenty more layers to go. So we have time to work this out. We've got time. I'm going to mix the quinacridone red with some of that yellow to mix a nice orange here. It's not going to be the most vibrant orange ever because it's a cool red, but a very natural orange, I think. I knew I wanted a transparent red, and very unfortunately, it's really difficult to get a warm transparent red. The warm reds tend to be more opaque, but that's okay. I'm gonna tackle those edges with my smaller brush. My smaller round brush for precision. And every now and then I'm just going to use a mister bottle to give those paints a little spritz of water so that they don't dry up on me. Which they really shouldn't, because it's very humid here today in New Jersey. Now we're just blocking in color, so no stress here with this first layer. Absolutely none. Maybe a little bit, pick up more of the gold, more of a pure yellow. Okay, I'm going to switch to my smaller brush, my smaller round brush, because it gives me more control. And I'm going to take that around the other little hole that I made in the leaf. It's like a cute little bug came along and nibbled a little hole in this leaf, this fall leaf. And one of them is in a perfect little heart shape. I think that's so cute. And I love the way that tells a story, I really do. If you guys are new to the channel and you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you are, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And subscribe, hit that notification bell, because if you don't, then YouTube won't notify you when I upload new videos, because they suck like that. Take some of that color around the top here of the leaf. We're definitely going to do this design, this leaf design again, somewhere else down the line here. Not sure where. I'm going to be doing a lot of autumn painting tutorials this fall. Pastel, acrylic, watercolor, gouache even. So I've got a lot of ideas. I'll put a little white in that maybe. I've got a brown here that I've mixed up, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, some of the yellow, a little bit of the white even, just for a little more opacity in that, to make the little stem of the leaf. There we go. I actually want that little area to be a somewhat muted green. So I'm going to take a tiny bit of the burnt sienna, ultramarine blue with a little bit of that mid-azo to mix a green. And those Matisse structure acrylics, they are so vibrant. I mean, they're just gorgeous. I got a little bit of that. I might put a little bit of that green in the leaf too. I'll just smear some yellow over that. There we go. Let's have that blend in a bit more. And also want to take some of that permanent rose. Now, if I'm calling it permanent rose, it's because, again, in every other brand is this, most of the time when you're painting with this color, it's called permanent rose, but Golden is calling this quinacridone red. Take a little bit. Just blend, blend, blend the paint. All right, so that's the first layer done. As you can see, we're just blocking in color. We're not worrying about details. We're not worrying about anything, but that is the very first layer. We're gonna let it dry. So I let that dry up pretty good. I wanted to show you my palette because I thought it might be helpful. I know some of you said that it is helpful. So what I have here, I'll show you the colors. I've got the Azo Yellow, Transparent Yellow, Burnt Sienna, Quin Rose, or quinacridone red, whatever, and ultramarine blue. To make these mixes here, the green is just the blue with the Azo Yellow. The brown is just a combination of the burnt sienna with the ultramarine blue. This orange that I've mixed is just a combination of the permanent rose and that yellow. And then I've got this kind of fiery, really red, slightly browned color that I've mixed with some of the permanent rose, burnt sienna, and the two different yellows I've got a little in there. So hopefully you guys will find that helpful. And as I said, every now and then I go ahead and I just mist the palette with a little bit of water to keep the paints from drying out while I'm working. So I've got that. I'm going to take that nice warm brown that I mixed up, and I'm going to put that right here on the corner of this leaf here, because it's going to be very dark right here on the edge where I know that it's going to be like folding over between the two pieces of leaf there. And let's see, let me go ahead, wipe that brush off a little bit. I'm going to take that nice warm fiery color that I mixed up. It's a little bit red again. I'm going to blend out from that like so. I'll go right in with that nice kind of warm fiery yellow. I want to see more of that in there. There we go. Overlapping some of it. Wipe the brush off. Go to some of that orange that I mixed. And again, a lot of this is going to be personal preference, like what colors do you like? You know? Going around that heart when you're blending can be a little tricky. It's easy to forget it's there. If it is easier for you to leave that heart out, leave it out. You know, like, go ahead and try it without it if it's a little bit on the difficult side for you. Or you could just go, you could maybe put like a little gold heart on top, or silver or something like that. I'm going to be super brave here. I'm going to take that pure yellow. I'm going to, you know, when you have the filbert this way, it's like a flat. When you turn it more this way, it's almost like a round. So let's see if I can get nice and sharp into that little spot. I sure did. Getting brave. Getting brave. And when you're working real small scale like this, it's pretty easy for the paint to stay wet and for you to have time to blend and do all the things that you want to do with it. But if you're still having trouble, if you're still struggling and you feel like the paint's drying too much on you or too quick before you can blend, you can try adding a little bit of retarder to the paint. Get in there. There we go. Nice, I like that. I'm just going in to blend that edge off. I want to make sure it's nice. There we are. I take some of that orange Yeah, I want more of that orange. Right in here, I think. There we go. I think this is what they call a red maple leaf, but I'm not entirely certain. Blending out with the yellow. Yellow mid-azo. Yeah, that clear gesso really does more than you might think. And it's made it a really pleasurable surface to work on, so much more so than if it didn't have it. For some of this down here. What do I want to do there? What do I want to see there? I'm going to take a little more of the orange, but I think this time I'm going to mix it far more toward the yellow. So just to show you guys, see what I've done there? That was the original orange. I've mixed quite a bit of yellow. So you can really see that's much lighter than that orangey color I had mixed. Go like that. I think I'll put a little of that orangey color. Where else? Let's put some here, because I feel like with the background looking the way it is, with, you know, this just helps it stand out a little bit more. Pretty. And we'll take and blend. There we go. Very nice. I like how that's coming out. Now I think I want to see a little of that green in there, and I'm going to mix it way, way, way to the yellow, but I want to see just a little bit of that green just sort of smeared right there into that yellow. So I'll put some in, and I'm going to put a little in right here as well, and then I'll wipe the brush off. See, I don't rinse my brush off every single time in between colors. You know, number one, you're going to waste very precious, valuable acrylic painting blending time doing that, but also it's not necessary. Wipe it off. Wipe that brush off. Now I've got that pure yellow on my brush. I'm going to come in and reinforce some of this. There we go. I feel like these types of moments are the moments that you don't get to see enough on probably other people's painting tutorials, especially like the sped up acrylic paint tutorials. I think there's this false idea that, you know, it's gonna look beautiful during every stage of the painting, or maybe a lot of people just don't realize how long of a process it can be. You really need to build up the layers. And I want to make sure people get a sense for that. Alrighty then, so it looks like we have a nice good coverage on that. Starting to look good. Starting to look good, starting to look better. You know, I think I want to see more yellow right here. I want to see more yellow kind of coming right through there, that area there. Put some more yellow along this leaf, this area of the leaf here. So how's everybody doing? Hope that everybody's in good health and good spirits. Yeah, I kind of wanted more yellow. So I'm going to go in now with my brush, sort of blend that yellow in a bit more through here. There we go. Right there. You know what you can do also? Most yellow is going to be pretty transparent. If you're having an issue getting it to cover, add a little bit of white. You can add a tiny bit of white into the yellow to bulk it back up if you need to. But I feel the need to have this even more yellow. Look kind of like a path of yellow. Right there. Last minute decision. Last minute adjustment, but it's worth it for me. More yellow there. And then you just need to go in and blend it out with its neighboring color. And all the while, the little trick is, all the while you're working on this, don't lose sight of that little heart. Because that you don't want to do. Okay, I like that. I also like that little bit of kind of reddish color. Right there. There we go. And you can keep messing with the colors until you are absolutely happy with it. I feel like I want like more of the red right in here. A little bit more. Okay. It's like a dark, kind of a brown red, but and then a little bit more of that like kind of chocolate color in the corner. We'll blend out with the red. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and let that dry, but I am going to come in, I'm going to work on kind of the outside part of that leaf, that little folded over bit, and I want this to be much lighter than the color next to it so that it will stand out and it will be obvious. I think I'm going to take like some of that orangish color that I mixed, and I'm going to use that as well into some yellow. But it's got to be much lighter. Okay, that's all I'm gonna do for right now. Alright, so I thought we'd go ahead and we'd do some glazing on this leaf. What I have here is the Golden Gloss Glazing Liquid. I really love Golden Gloss Glazing Liquid. You can use the Liquitex brand if you have it, if you like. I am gonna glaze some of the yellow over certain areas. You want to make sure the paint is pretty dry when you do this. So I'm going to glaze some of the yellow. By pretty dry I mean that you want to make sure the layer is dry. Excuse me, I'm having fun with my paint. Gotten carried away in the moment. I'm going to glaze some of this orangey color. I think that's really pretty. Oh yes. Let's glaze that right over. Now the only thing about glazes that you want to be a little careful with is you want to make sure that you work that glaze out on your palette nice and smooth with a palette knife so that it's not going to get streaky or funky on you. But it's going to work out nice. I think I'm going to take and glaze yellow over this whole area over here just to give a little bit more richness. Glazes are a beautiful way to add clarity and brilliance and beauty to your work, and also to come in and adjust colors. They're great for that. But gosh, I love glazing. I'm going to take a little bit of this green. I've got a little green glaze here. A little bit there, and then I'm going to glaze the yellow all around it to blend that out, because I just wanted a little bit of green influence there. More of that yellow glaze. Now glazes might look a little bit milky when you're first applying them, but they will dry completely and totally transparent. I actually really like the Liquitex glazing liquid. It is very shiny and very like a resin almost. It's really beautiful, but the only problem I have with theirs is that it dries super quick and I don't feel like I get enough time to blend. But the Golden's has that retarder in it, so it dries nice and slow, which is nice. And for something like this, you might not notice too much of a difference. Got yellow on my brush here, because you might not need a lot of time to blend. But especially if you're doing something like portraiture, you will notice a significant difference. You'll need that extra time, absolutely. I'm going to take more yellow in here. Smoothing that area out some. There we go. And I'm actually going to take a little bit of the quinacridone red and glaze some of that over here. Like that. Let's take a little of that quinacridone red, which is really a rose or a pink shade, whatever. I don't know why they don't just call it quinacridone rose. It's quinacridone rose, you guys. It is. Let's take some more of that orangey glaze. It's really fiery and beautiful. I really like it. Let's take some of that. Yeah, I like that. I like it a lot. There we go. Let's take a little of that. All right. I'm going to take a little bit of the green, glaze a little bit more of that green over. Alright, so I went ahead and I let that dry. I removed the tape. When you're removing the tape, make sure that you peel it very gently back onto itself. Don't rip it, or you may end up ripping the paper and damaging it pretty badly. Also, if you have an issue with it curling up a tiny bit on you or whatever like that when it's all dry, you can put a sheet of glassine or even parchment paper or something over the top to protect it, and then put a heavy book or something on top and it should flatten it right back out. So I've got a warm mixture here of the burnt sienna and some of the permanent rose, and I'm just going to go ahead and put some of the veins in. Now this is pretty light to start because I know, and I've got a very small detail brush. This is actually a 00 Cotman brush. I know that I can come in and add the veining darker to some areas once I'm ready to do that, but for right now, this is a nice mid-tone that I can get in. And it's nice if you can have the veins lining up to one of those points in the leaf. Like so. I think we'll have a little bit one traveling off there and there. Okay, I want to take some of that orange mixture. You can add a tiny bit of water to get the paint to flow, but don't add too much water because then you may underbind the paint. I'm going to take that and I'm going to add it in like that. I want it a little bit lighter. More of the yellow in it, and twist the brush in the paint to a nice fine point. Not all of these veins are going to be the same color. Some of these are going to be lighter, more yellowy orange, and some of them are going to be darker. Like so. And don't worry about perfection. Just have fun with it, you guys. Welcome in the autumn season and have some fun with it. Let's see. I actually like this brush pretty well for details for acrylic paint. Let's see. I don't want to overdo. I don't want too many. But I definitely want a couple. Maybe we'll have it kind of split off a little there. How's that? That's nice. I like that. There we go. Now it's starting to look like a leaf. Now it's starting to come together. This one, more like that. I think that's really nice. Let's take some of that lighter kind of orangey yellow that I mixed up and put a few little veins over here for some contrast, like that, because why not? Like that. Okay, so that's it for the veining. I'm going to take that very same brush and I'm going to take a very light yellow. This is just that Hansa yellow mixed with some titanium white. Thin it down with a little bit of water, but again, keeping in mind that we don't want to underbind the paint. Twist in my brush in that to get a very nice fine point. And I'm going to come and I'm going to actually use that to kind of highlight the inside of that heart. I want to add a little more white, and I think I'm going to use, you can use your regular white, I'm going to use some of the fluid white so that I can get a nice fluid consistency. I love the golden fluid acrylics, by the way. You don't have to have them, but they are nice. And I'm going to use that to just come in and just highlight as if the sun is catching those edges of the inside of the heart there. Like that. I'm also going to do that a little bit around the edge of the leaf in a few places. Not the whole leaf. Just a few little places. Like that. And you might want to go over a little bit more for opacity if you need it. See that? Isn't that pretty? Yes, I like that. That's nice. And might just come in a little bit around the edge of this leaf as well. This part of the leaf, rather. And maybe we'll take a little bit of that lighter kind of reddish color. We'll add white to that to maybe just highlight a tiny bit more right there on that stem, a little bit more of the leaf. But that's really it, you guys. I think that completes today's tutorial. So I wanted to thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy today's tutorial, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos. And I did want to let you know that I've already prepped one of these with some golden pastel grounds so we could do a pastel painting tutorial together on book pages. So if you guys are interested, stick around, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and as always, you guys, I hope you have a great day. Bye.